Ink up, slow down, write your rhythm with script and scribe. Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. I'm Kat, and today I am sharing the month-end update I promised you for my 2026 language learning kit. This is the system that I showed you back in November, my little Muji grab-and-go setup for Korean and Mandarin, designed for tiny daily habits. And I'm really happy to say that it did what I needed it to do in December and January. Not that I am suddenly fluent, obviously. If I were, I would declare myself a polyglot extraordinaire, sell the course, and move to Seoul next week. But it didn't do any of that. What it did do is help me start building that daily habit, which is the whole point. So, quick recap. I have two small weekly planners, one for Korean, one for Mandarin, and they allow me to do tiny daily tasks of words and phrases. I've got room for reference notes in the back and additional notebooks for more notes. And media logging at the front for the monthly overview, because let's not pretend that I am not watching a lot of addictive Chinese dramas and Korean dramas anyway. So the whole thing was meant to be fun but realistic rather than stressfully productivity driven, something that I can keep up with when life is lifing. So, a quick personal note before we get into the details. I'm doing this with limited energy because I'm dealing with chronic pain. And if you know about chronic pain and inflammation, recently there's been a study to say that it is causing our brains to be rewired, and more of us are getting an ADHD diagnosis as a result. So, especially with my condition, endometriosis, 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with adult ADHD. And I'm certainly feeling it because my attention is working differently than it did in my 20s. I'm now in my 40s. So, this kit is not about doing the most, it's about building a habit I can actually sustain and, just keeping things going, because having ADHD doesn't mean you can't do stuff. It just means that you have to have systems in place. And I think that this is going to be a system that helps me. All right, so let's get into what worked. This is definitely a manageable method. I don't have the time or the brainwidth to commit to an elaborate language learning system. So bite-sized is enough so that I can show up even when I'm feeling low energy or brain foggy. And that matters far more than having a very perfect looking setup. It's building a daily habit, which is a big win for me. I missed active learning days twice in December and again twice in January. I call active learning days the days that I'm using the app to learn. In this case, I'm using Duolingo, but there are other apps out there. So for active learning, I showed up 58 days out of 62. When it comes to passive learning, well, I showed up for every single day because I've been watching dramas. So even on the days that I didn't sit down with the planners, I still had that exposure through dramas, reels, or songs. So even when I don't do much, I still touch language. So consistency is the foundation. And it did make my drama watching feel more educational rather than guilty pleasure, which I know is a bit dangerous. So this is the December overview, focusing on food and nationalities and saying things like Korean, I am American, and saying things like this is rice and tofu, which I think was Jusha mifan he tofu. And I have to say, I've enjoyed learning Mandarin through Duolingo, and I am finding the Chinese dramas are really good for me recognizing certain words, like I'm going, oh, that's soup and that's rice. But after watching some Instagram reels, I'm concerned about my pronunciation. It could be unintelligible. Definitely need to look at tutors from April onwards. That's my reflection for December. And we go on to January overview. And again, nationality is featured, and this time with professions. And here we've got, have a nagging sense that I should learn more and faster, but keep reminding myself that it's not a race. I'm not spending hours a day to prove I can be a polyglot. I'm doing this for myself and to understand even a little Mandarin when I travel to China in 2027. I don't have hours a day to spare, so minutes will do. And this was really just a sort of pep talk to not be too discouraged. But honestly, it's been a lovely mental shift. If I'm watching a K drama or C drama, I'm not thinking I should be doing something more productive. I'm thinking this is passive input and it's far better than doom scrolling. So I also like when I started recognizing certain things like that's the word for soup or that's the word for water or tea and all of that. So, yes, I've officially turned Netflix into a study tool. Now, what didn't work or isn't working yet? Digital is definitely winning over flashcards for me. I showed you the analog flashcards that I had for Korean that I bought on eBay. I'm not using those. I thought I was going to be using them tons, but the truth is, an app is just easier for a 15-minute session. Duolingo is right there. YouTube teachers are right there. Instagram lessons are right there. Immediate, portable, and interactive in a way the flashcards just aren't. But they are not useless. They're just not the main character for this time of my learning. They're currently the supporting cast with great potential, I would say. Perhaps a character that comes into its own in season 3. Who knows? Anyway, pronunciation. I have got pronunciation anxiety with Mandarin, so that is not a win at the moment for me. It's a nagging concern. I have a little worry that by April or June, when I'm ready to look at tutors, I'll discover I've been confidently pronouncing something wrong for months. I'm very aware that pronunciation, especially tones, matter a lot in Mandarin. So right now, I'm treating that as awareness rather than overly stressing about it. I'd rather build a foundation that exists than stall trying to make it perfect. My focus is habit first and then refinement later. I'm not ready for tutoring yet, and I'm still very much in that habit building stage. But if I could change something about my life in an ideal world, it would be getting a native speaker, providing feedback from the very start. So if you're in that position, I think that's the way to go. Now, pronunciation, I feel, is less of a concern for me in Korean rather than Mandarin because there seems to be less risk of being misunderstood, whereas in Mandarin, there's all these tonal errors that can cause misunderstandings. Also, what I was calling Hanzi, but I think it's Hanzi, is a struggle. The writing system for Mandarin is not easy, and so I'm leaning heavily on the pinyin, which allows you to pronounce Mandarin by writing out the sounds using the Latin alphabet and tone marks. And at this stage, that support is really useful. I can recognize a few characters, for example, cha for tea, which sort of makes sense in terms of how they split the radicals, but it is one of the few characters that I am finding intuitive. Now, I don't want to turn my lack of character recognition into some sort of shame spiral where I decide I'm so bad at Mandarin or written Mandarin and therefore stop. But for now, pinyin is that bridge with the understanding that I'll cross that bridge eventually. For Hangul, the Korean writing system, I'm finding it a little easier. But I still like to include a pronunciation reminder in my notes. So I've got copy for coffee, 감사합니다 for thank you, 안녕하세요 for hello, 빙수, 주세요. I'm definitely hopeful that I can at least order a juice if I go to Seoul. Yeah, so this is what the last 2 months have been like. And like I say, it's been a lot of fun. A surprising thing is that I also realized I haven't used the Clairefontaine notebooks yet. Not because they're pointless, but because the planners are currently enough. Yes, I'd feel amazing filling pages with beautiful notes, but I know myself, sometimes that's just about looking productive rather than it actually sinking in. So I'm okay with doing my listening and attempting to speak and having more minimal notes than, might look more aesthetically pleasing. The goal is comprehension and communication and not aesthetic output, is what I think I'm trying to say. Notes are a learning tool, notes are a reference, but swathes of notes are not my goal. So, what I'm changing for February. The Muji planners are here to stay, so that's not changing. The core system is working. Flashcards, they are on the side, digital first and then flashcards on the side. I'm not forcing them because I bought them. So, yeah. And I'm not going to overstress about trying to write tons of Hanse or um, I'm not sure I'm saying it correctly, but it's definitely a better option than me saying Hansi, like I was saying at the start. But I think trying to do 3 characters a week, a link to a phrase I've heard in a show or a lesson, will be useful. And I'll open the Clairefontaine whenever I'm ready, maybe in a couple of months when I do feel more confident about writing. I have the mental bandwidth to keep a faster pace, I would say, with Hangul, but I'm not going to try and compete at the same speeds. I'll go with what's intuitive. So whether Korean or Mandarin goes further ahead, we'll see in the future. It's all low stakes, high consistency at the moment. And pronunciation safety nets, because I'm not ready for a tutor. I'm trying to use YouTube teachers instead and focusing on hearing tones clearly. But the thing is, without that feedback, you can't tell if you're being unaware of the tones yourself. I will be watching less Korean and Chinese TV for about a week, and not because it's a problem. In fact, it saved me from doom scrolling, but it is because my sister and her family are coming over to stay with me mid-February, and there will be 5 of them. So 1 remote control, wildly different tastes for nieces aged 16 to 29, and of course my older sister and her husband. And not a single person whose preference aligns with my C-drama and K-drama obsession. So I'll graciously hand over the remote and let them negotiate. It's a planned pause. I'll scale back passive input for that week and then pick it up again afterwards. Now, overall, December and January were a win, not because they were impressive, but because they felt sustainable and honestly enjoyable. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've been cringing through my discussion about how I'm learning and going, oh my goodness, she doesn't know that, XYZ. Feel free to let me know in the comments. This format seems to be reducing overwhelm and it's making me show up on a daily basis, which I need right now. If you're learning a language too, I'd love to know, how are you finding it? How far are you into it? Are you more digital, more analog, or a mix of both? And if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, or share. It really helps. And I'll be back next week or in a few days with a fountain pen related video, and then probably another planner video to let you know how my daily journaling is going. And that's it. Thanks so much for spending time with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye. Ink up, slow down, write your rhythm with script and scribe. Ink up, slow down, write your rhythm with script and scribe. Ink up, slow down, write your rhythm with script and scribe.